welcome to Microsoft Mechanics Live. Coming up, we're joined by John Macintyre to take a look at Azure Synapse Analytics, our next-gen Azure SQL Data Warehouse solution that delivers limitless analytics, on-demand query compute at scale, all as a single service. Now, we're going to show you the end-to-end experience of building and deploying rich analytics scenarios and how you can automatically generate predictive models and much more. And to do that, I'm joined again by Mr. John Macintyre from the Azure Synapse Analytics team. Welcome. Everybody give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's good to be back.
Thank you. So last time you were on the show, it wasn't too many months ago, but we looked at Azure SQL Data Warehouse Generation 2. Now, that was super powerful. It was a great platform in terms of analyzing massive data sets, but we recently looked at the modern data warehouse with Charles Feddersen and that solution pattern and how it really brought together a full stack, effectively, of data and analytics. But how do we evolve that even further for with Azure Synapse?
Yeah, so with our modern data warehouse solution pattern, really, we were focused on taking best-of-breed services and allowing customers to interconnect these to enable really entirely new analytics solutions that they couldn't do with a traditional or enterprise data warehouse. We could bring data in, and we have very powerful ETL services. Once that data came into a data lake, you use big data processing and processing engines to do that, to process that data. Our data warehouse services would allow you to serve that data out to organizations, enabling visualization of data and BI. So, you know, it was a really good solution pattern for customers to go build out their solutions. But, you know, that said, I think what we realized is there's a lot of complexity to wiring all of these pieces together. You need to right-size those services. You need to monitor health and understand how services are interacting with one another. You need to be able to enforce security and security constraints. You need to be able to manage networking across all of these technology pieces. So we've been really focused on how do we create a platform that enables end-to-end analytics that combines all of these capabilities that you need for limitless analytics into a single service. And that really is Azure Synapse Analytics. It's the evolution of our Azure SQL Data Warehouse service. And so with Azure Synapse, we give you a unified service where fully integrated capabilities with not just ETL, but we've also enabled hybrid data ingestion and orchestration. All of that's built into the service and the platform. We give you secure, self-service, enterprise analytics through our data warehouse. And we're also providing AI and big data processing built into Synapse. We've added capabilities such as efficient compute for on-demand query processing, as well as monitoring, management, integrated security, all through a unified security. That's a big piece as well, is the great experience that we offer customers. This all leverages our Azure Data Lake storage service for any type of data. You can put all of your data in that storage service. And then certainly, we've done a lot of work on our open data initiative, allowing people to bring data in from a variety of sources. Adobe is a great example as a partner on open data initiative.
Right, so it's really powerful because you're able to onboard your organization much faster. You're removing all the integration work, kind of assemble all the kind of building blocks together and all those core pieces, and it's kind of just a turnkey service now. It's got its entire analytics platform out of the box. It's well-tuned, and it's going to get massive. It'll meet the needs really of any workload, right?
No, that's right. I mean, any data, any analytics at limitless scale, Azure Synapse, really, we're really eliminating that divide that exists between the data warehouse and the data lake. And of course, this is an open platform that integrates a broad set of services, including Power BI, Dynamics, Azure Machine Learning, Azure Data Share. And then as you think about sort of your existing landscape for data, all the applications and things that you use inside of your environment, we integrate with that ecosystem as well. We talked about a lot of good partners that we've launched with here with the Azure Synapse platform.
OK, then, so how do data teams then interact with the service?
Yeah, so that's one of the really unique aspects of Azure Synapse. So here you have the Synapse Workspace. And so within the Synapse Workspace, this is really where data engineers, data scientists, and data analysts can collaborate within this environment to do work with data and to do analytics. From the data hub, if I'm a data analyst, I get access to all of my data. So I have my storage accounts, databases, data sets, I have my develop tab, so if I'm a data scientist, or if I'm writing scripts, or if I'm doing analysis, I can write SQL-based analysis, I can do notebooks, and I can do, if I'm using Spark, I can do our large-scale data processing with Spark within that environment.
Okay.
And if I'm a data engineer and I want to orchestrate a pipeline, so I want to put something in production and get everything going end to end, I can do that from the Orchestrate hub here within the Synapse Studio. And of course, you can monitor and manage the service. So the service is not just removes the silos between people in the organization, but also brings the data closer together.
Right. And why don't you give us a closer look then at how all of this kind of works?
The way we think about Synapse bringing everything into a single service, in fact, to get started, it's really, we wanted to simplify that process as well. So within Azure Portal, it's very, very simple to get going. All you have to do is create a workspace. You don't have to necessarily define servers, create databases, or do any of that setup. You just want that workspace where you can start going and doing your work.
Right. You just kind of need a storage account, I think. Then you go through a resource manager template like you're seeing here. But all those kind of sub-services, components, all those things that you had to do with the solution pattern, it's all just kind of here for you, right?
So I can do it right here within the Azure portal. I don't think I can do capital. Let's see. It's complaining on my syntax, 2019, 1.1.
There we go.
So if I bind that to a storage account, so basically Synapse will link to an Azure Data Lake storage account or multiple Azure Data Lake storage account. That's where I can put all of my data. I just provide that. I provide the workspace name. I give the region. And boom, I'm done. OK, so it's super easy to provision, again, compared to kind of putting all the pieces together. But then how do you bring data into the platform once you've kind of got the scaffolds and everything set up? Yeah, because Synapse is ODI aware, any data that is pushed to the lake in ODI format, Synapse can work with. And for all other enterprise data, as a data engineer, you would come to the Pipelines hub. So within the Pipelines hub, I can build pipelines and I can ingest data. But to start to do that, what I would do to start with is actually create a link service. So I can link to an external data source or a place where I want to bring data in from. We have over 90 connections to various data providers or data sources. These can include databases. These include SaaS applications. And it also includes other clouds. And so if there's data in AWS, there's data in Google, there's data in Salesforce, you want to bring that in. Yep. Synapse makes it really easy to go do that. It's really, we're taking ETL and data integration to the next level. Right. So you've linked everything up. Now, how do I actually bring data into the service once we've got everything linked up? Azure Synapse provides both code-first and code-free experiences to bring data in. So I'll go over to a pipeline that we have created already. This is just a really simple ingestion pipeline. It's copying data from one of the linked services. I'm going to zoom so folks can see this. Okay. So here we have a copy data activity, and then we have a data flow, which is actually doing some transformation of that data as it comes in. As I mentioned, you can write code to do this data transformation, or you can get a visual experience to do that. If I click on the data flow, I can actually modify that data flow. So if you think of, you've done data transformations before, you think of left side, right side type of transformations, what do I want to do to the data in between to make it cleaner and make it more usable for people? So here we can do a variety of transformations. We have a full visual interface to go do this. So in this case, let's say I want to create a derived column. I can create a derived column for that data flow, and then I would just save that. And then Synapse will do all the heavy lifting, all the hard work. It pushes this code down. It does the code gen of all this, pushes it down to a scale-out cluster, executes that, and then off you go. Awesome. So it's super graphical, intuitive, really good for collaboration, where maybe a distributed team might be able to share and interact with a common set of pipelines. It's kind of a nice thing there, and also data sets. But why don't we keep moving down the left navigation here and look at what you can do under Develop? Because I imagine that this is kind of the core of what Azure Synapse is, given that it's the evolution of Azure SQL Data Warehouse, right? Right, yeah. SQL, if you think about SQL, SQL is one of the most popular languages for enterprise analytics. this lights up where we're doing data visualization. And the enterprise data warehouse traditionally has been the platform powering this. So Synapse extends the capabilities of SQL Data Warehouse. So we're building on the performance, the elasticity, the security, the robustness, and the scale of the service to give your analysts a single source of truth for enterprise analytics.
Cool. So it's been optimized and extended with even more capabilities. So after our years, because we've been running these kind of massive data and compute services at Microsoft, why don't we switch gears? How do we integrate with any existing data that we have?
Yeah, so this is where the data lake integration comes in. You remember, Jeremy, we linked our data lake account to our workspace. So we can go into our and navigate to our data lake here. We'll switch over to that screen. There we go. So here we have access to all of our data lake data. I'll zoom into this. These are just Parquet files. So what I can do through the data lake integration and through the capabilities in Synapse is I can just simply select some of this data.
Okay.
I can click on New SQL Script. What Synapse will do is automatically generate a SQL statement for you, and for me in this case. What it's doing is detecting the type of data that we're actually analyzing. And so I can click Run, and then what will happen is we're using, if you can see here, we're using what's called the SQL On-Demand service. So this is an on-demand query service that allows you to work directly over the lake and analyze that data.
Explain kind of what's going on demand. If we flip over to my machine, you can see kind of the way that things work. Normally, it's kind of an integrated data lake that you've got, like we're showing here. But you can also use it on demand and actually provision compute resources, basically, so you can run some of these more powerful, more power-hungry queries that you're going to need when you need them, only at the exact moment that you're running the query, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we can see here is that back on the demo device is that the query is actually completed at this point. And now I have the opportunity, within Synapse, I can also quickly visualize the data. So if I click on the chart option here, that data, I get options to visualize that data, I get options to chart that data, and so I can start to really do something with that data at this point.
Cool, so pretty awesome in terms of having a query service that works directly, in this case, over a data lake.
Yeah, and you see if I go back to the table view, Synapse has also automatically detected the schema for that data. So all the columns are there in the results pane. As I showed you, I could also visualize that data, and I can do all of that right from the Synapse workspace.
And it's amazing because here in this case, we're actually querying over a data lake. We're schematizing that, even though it might be unstructured data, right?
That's right. Yeah. And so now I can load that data directly into a SQL Data Warehouse, and that becomes, if I sort of think about the enterprise source of truth, those load now into what we call Synapse tables, and I can meet the performance expectations for that enterprise data warehouse by provisioning. You talked about, Jeremy, those provisioned resources where I might have some demanding workloads on the other side of that. I may choose not to use the on-demand service, but really get the capabilities of a provisioned pool.
Cool. So it's really great that you can quickly switch between query modes depending on your workload. It looks like it's kind of the complete unification when you think about data lake and warehouse kind of all in one place.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really by enabling both a SQL query service combined with provisioned resources. You can apply whichever compute modality is optimal for your workloads. So if you have ad hoc explorations, you may use one mode. If you're using operational dashboards and reporting, you may choose to use the provisioned resources.
And the nice thing is it can be used regardless of where the data is actually physically stored. But how would a data scientist then use Synapse?
Yeah, so it's easy.
All right. It's always easy, isn't it?
It's always easy. Easy button.
All right. Python is easy.
So as I mentioned earlier, AI and ML big data is actually built into Synapse. And Synapse provides a Spark-based analytics runtime. And it supports multiple languages for doing data processing and machine learning. Okay. Those languages, if you're a Python person, you can do Python. Certainly Java, R. The other thing that we've done is we've added .NET support into Spark. So for our large community of .NET developers that want to do large-scale data processing with Spark, you can now do that. So here you can see, if I go back to the Data Hub, I'll navigate to my data. Similarly, the same way that we opened a SQL script, I can open a notebook. Synapse will detect and populate some Python code to actually go start analyzing this data.
Okay.
But I'm going to switch over to a more involved notebook that was developed earlier. I'll scroll down. What we're doing here is we're actually using this notebook to train a machine learning model. So here we're calling into Azure Machine Learning. We're creating an experiment set. We're pushing that data to that configuration to Azure Machine Learning.
Okay.
We then run that experiment. I'll scroll down a little bit. These are the experiment results. So we ran, I think it was 18 iterations of this particular experiment. And then when I'm finished doing that, I can actually go register that model with Azure Machine Learning.
Okay.
So you can see here at the bottom here, we're finding the right model. We'll register that model with Azure Machine Learning. And then I can actually make use of that model within Azure Synapse. In fact, I can use that model, and I can use models that I create directly within SQL, which was really powerful.
So SQL with ML.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So
let's see it.
Let me show you that. So I'm going to flip over to a SQL statement that I wrote earlier. So the interesting thing here is I have a SQL statement that's invoking a predict function.
Okay.
And so that's just SQL that I know and love. I wrote that SQL, and we're invoking a model here, a predictive model.
So this is a taxi cab data set, right? We're going to try to figure out whether or not the taxi driver will
It's good to tell everyone that, because we haven't told everyone
Yeah.
that. It's like, by the way.
Yes, it's good to tell people. So we're going to predict whether or not the taxi driver will get a tip.
We're actually going to predict what the fare is going to be. So if I'm driving around and I'm like going to go pick, so like maybe I'm doing rideshare, I'm going to pick someone up and be like, hey, what is actually the fare amount going to be? So we have a model here that's going to predict the fare amount.
Which is more important from the business decision-making perspective
That's
versus
right.
the tipping of the
That's
driver.
right. It depends on who you are,
Yeah,
I suppose.
exactly.
So here I ran that SQL query right within Synapse. Here you can see the results. On the far right, you see total amount. Hopefully, folks can see that. Total amount is a predicted value, because actually the ride has not happened yet.
Okay.
And so we're predicting that right within the SQL engine. So the really cool thing here is that if you're a SQL developer and you know SQL, you can actually now do predictive analytics right in place, right within Synapse.
But we've also integrated some visualizations as well. So why don't you show us kind of what you can do in the visualization front?
We have.
All right, let's see it.
All right. So I'm going to show you, we have integrated right within Synapse Power BI development experience. So I'm going to collapse some of these notebooks to give us a little more room. At the bottom there in the Develop Hub, you're going to see something called Power BI. It's a service. It does BI and
I think
reporting.
people
Have you
know
heard of
about
it?
Power BI,
Okay.
yes. We've actually got a show on that later.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We'll tune in. OK, so when I create a Synapse workspace, I can actually link my Power BI workspace to my Synapse workspace. And so these work really well together. You know, we get a peanut butter chocolate type of effect going on here with BI and analytics. And right from the Synapse Studio, I can actually modify my BI report. So I can load all that. We're sharing artifacts. We're sharing security models. And so this is really a great simplified experience for if I'm a data engineer and I'm working with a set of people inside my organization that are building reports and visualizations, we get a common language. We're going to say, hey, I updated this report. It looks a little off. The data looks a little off. I'm working with data in Synapse. Yep. I can go look at this report. I can even make changes. If I have permission to go make changes on that report, I could add new fields. And I can do that right within the Synapse experience.
Looks amazing. Loving the integration there with Power BI. So a lot of really good stuff that we've covered today across Synapse. We're delivering some really amazing experiences. But where can people go then to start using this and kind of get their hands on it and learn more?
Yeah, I mean, so this is really just a first look at what we're doing with Synapse. People are starting to use it. We're in preview. We're getting some great feedback. We saw customers like Unilever that were on stage this week talking about their experience with Synapse. So for people to get going, you can check out aka.ms/synapse to learn more and sign up today.
Really good stuff, John. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, keep watching Microsoft Mechanics for the latest tech updates. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. We'll see you next time, and goodbye for now.